Welcome to RPG Book Club Movie Nights, the podcast where we watch a movie that has literally nothing to do with anything that we just did. Not even close. Just Bernard also likes this movie, and that's the theme tonight. I am Sam Allman.
I'm Bernard. I like this movie.
And I'm Trish. I actually like this movie.
And so tonight we will be discussing Oscar 1991, starring Sylvester Stallone, directed by John Landis.
Mm-hmm.
And before we get to that, how was everyone's week?
I started Baldur's Gate 3.
So did I.
It's good.
It's very good.
I want to get it.
I honestly, knowing me, I'm not, after all we talked about with Skies of Arcadia, it's probably not a surprise that the thing that convinced me to get it was when I heard there was polyamory in the game, and I'm starting to find out it's like, I mean, kinda, but like, I feel like it could be better implemented, but whatever. It's still a really good game.
Mm-hmm. I started it just now, and I haven't encountered any polyamory or monogamy because so far I've met 2 party members. One of them's an asshole. The other one dislikes the asshole, but not because the asshole's an asshole. She dislikes the asshole because she's racist. So I don't like either of them.
So I'm gonna tell you, the one that you're calling racist, I am unsure if I would actually use that label with her, but she is a character I quite enjoy. Her name is Shadowheart.
Mm-hmm.
I adore her. To be fair, I think it's less of a racist thing and more just I think the thing is, remember, this is fucking Forgotten Realms D&D. This is that D&D, and so it seems more like Gith culture is just like this, and this person who we've interacted with is just representative of her culture because this is Forgotten Realms, and that's how that's how that setting is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But
my only counterpoint to that is you can write stories where people aren't racist by their culture. It's possible to do it.
It's true. I wish that wasn't there, but then again, that literally so many characters in this game are just like that and are otherwise very likable and cool characters. And it's just like, I guess we're supposed to take from this that, hey, it's D&D. It's okay to be, do the, elves hate dwarves thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantasy racism it's not a subject I'm qualified to speak on.
No.
I'm not an elf.
Me neither. The only fantasy racism I will support, and I'm carrying the flag because Maddie is no longer on the podcast, but fuck elves. Just
agreed. Can I 100% fuck elves. Elves suck.
Yeah.
Don't like them. My thing is the moral superiority thing they have going on. Looking at you, space elves, aka Vulcans.
Yes. I love when we were playing Rogue Galaxy. There's a character who's a space elf who we were all like falling in love, and it was awesome. And then she like took off her hat or whatever, and Maddie saw the ears. It was like, God damn it, it's a space elf.
That is. I don't extend my hatred of elves to like every elvish character. It's elfiness, that indescribable elfiness that I'm not a fan of.
Yes. But besides Baldur's Gate 3, did anyone else do anything exciting this week?
Been replaying Oracle of Seasons.
Ooh.
I'm on the final dungeon. It's a bitch. What else have I been doing? Yesterday was 1 month since I landed here in Massachusetts.
Nice.
I didn't even realize that until today. I missed the actual anniversary date itself. And today we all went to, the whole household went to go to a Asian supermarket. It was the first time we'd all gone out and done something together. It was really fun.
Nice. I am the proud owner of a much smaller CRT television. My last one was really nice, but it was a 32-inch HD TV CRT, so it was 150 pounds. And
I had one like that.
Very unwieldy. So I gave that one to a friend, and I got one that's like a 19, 20 inch now, and it's crappy. So I love it, and I've been watching Dragon Ball Z on VHS on CRT, and it's been wonderful. Other than that, my room is not put together at all yet, and I should stop watching Dragon Ball Z on VHS, and I should finish unpacking. But here we are, because we are now 3 weeks here in the house, and my room is still in utter packing disarray. But
you gotta get on that.
I do, but now I have a TV that can play anime the way it's supposed to look.
See, I don't have that problem, Sam, because I moved with just 2 suitcases worth of gloves, so there's nothing to unpack.
Yeah, I did that when I moved to Wisconsin, and then within a week I got my first CRT, and then when that one died, I got the big one, and then when I got tired of the big one, I got this one. So I keep finding big, heavy glass boxes and keeping them with me. But yeah. What about you, Bernard? Besides Baldur's Gate, anything important?
No.
Yeah, this week kind of flew by for me.
Yeah, same here.
What also has flown by is the voting period for our next game.
Oh, shit.
Let me double check. I checked it like an hour ago, and the poll was not in a way where an hour worth of changes could affect it. But I'm gonna do my diligence and check.
Here's how Paper Mario can still win.
the next game of RPG Book Club shall be Super Lesbian Animal RPG. So,
Woo-hoo!
Yay!
I don't know where we'll be stopping for our first episode, but we'll figure that out later. And where are we stopping, Trish?
Oh, we are going to be stopping after the first proper dungeon, which ends when you meet the reoccurring villain of the game. I don't know if I should tell you his name, but yeah, he feels main villainish. I'll say that. Like you meet him, get past that bit, and you're done.
Cool.
Okay.
So that's what we'll be doing next week. But this week, we will be talking about Oscar 1991, and we will do so after this brief break.
So before we talk about Oscar, I have to talk about a certain phenomenon which our younger viewers may or may not be familiar with. Back in the days of VHS tapes, every household with a VCR possessed at least one VHS tape of unknown provenance, which contained a movie no one had ever heard of and no one cared about, except for the kids of that family who watched it a lot.
Yes.
Shout outs to Willie the Sparrow. You're a real one.
I've never heard of that.
Surf ninjas.
See what I
surf
mean?
Ninjas.
So yeah, for my family, you can have more than one, but for my family, the tape I remember that we had was Oscar, a movie that I've never mentioned it to someone and they know what it is. It was a huge flop. It has a 12% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's criminal, I'm going to be honest. That's more criminal than the main character of this movie.
So yeah, that is my history with this movie. I have made several people watch it throughout my life, and they've always been like, yeah, it's pretty good. So I don't know what the critics were thinking back in 1991.
I'm gonna take a wild guess and say, because this came out in 1991 and this is a farce, like a classic farce, it doesn't. I have a feeling it might be just a genre mishmash, a mismatch with a lot of critics at the time.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not too dialed in to what film criticism was like the year I was born. But I do know that, for instance, in the aughts, people weren't able to like JRP. Or in the late aughts and early teens, people weren't able to like JRPGs. So I know this sort of genre thing can happen. So maybe that is what happened. But I think we can get started. The year 1931. The city, New York. The weather, rain. A fancy Depression-era car parks and a sharply dressed gangster played by none other than Sylvester Stallone steps out. This is Angelo Snaps Provolone, our hero for the next 109 minutes. Snaps has been called to see his dying father, who is played by none other than Kirk Douglas. Snaps asks if there's anything he can do. His father says Snaps has brought shame to the family with his gangster ways. He asks Snaps to promise to give up crime and live an honest life. Snaps reluctantly agrees, and his father dies peacefully. Then his father wakes up and slaps Snaps so he won't forget and dies peacefully again. We have a really weird opening credits sequence.
So weird. I loved it.
Where a stop motion guy sings some Italian opera for us. And I get the feeling John Landis just like knew someone who did a stop motion animation studio and was like, hey, why not? Anyway, it's now 1 month later at the beautiful Provolone estate. The day Snaps officially goes straight and becomes a banker. We see his lackeys playing cards in the kitchen. Chief lackey turned butler, Aldo, chews them out for slacking off on the big day. The bankers will be here to cinch the deal at noon, and they've got to get ready, and prom's tomorrow. Meanwhile, a snivelly informant guy is informing rival gangster Vendetti that something's going on with the Provolone estate today. Vendetti thinks Snaps is going to hook up with O'Banion's mob, whoever they are. Vendetti tells the informant to let him know if he finds out anything else, and says they're going to observe Snaps. Meanwhile, a couple of cops are staking out the Provolone estate, spying on it from the building across the street. Apparently, there's a big cop named Toomey who has it out for Snaps and is convinced he's been up to something. But, as one cop says, Snaps hasn't so much as spit on the sidewalk in 3 weeks. Toomey, played by none other than Kurtwood Smith, calls and says he's heard Snaps is hooking up with the O'Banion mob today, and we see the same informant bid him farewell. Then, a young man who is somehow both handsome and a dweeb rings the doorbell. Aldo answers the door and identifies him as Little Anthony, Snaps' accountant. Anthony insists that Aldo wake up Snaps early, saying it's a matter of life and death. Aldo reluctantly rouses the boss, who says this had better be good. Anthony says that, with all due respect, he has come to ask for a raise. Snaps is not amused, but Anthony says love makes one do strange things. Snaps asks who he's in love with. Anthony says she's a fine young lady from a wealthy family, and he's going to propose to her. In order to give her the life she deserves, Anthony wants a $1,000 a month raise, which would be a huge raise for me a century of inflation later. So I'm like, damn. Snaps is not amused, but Anthony plays hardball and gets him to agree to an $800 a month raise. Snaps tells him to go propose. Anthony stands and says it is his honor to ask for Snaps' daughter's hand in matrimony. Snaps is not amused. After threatening Anthony, then calming down, Snaps says he won't let Anthony marry his daughter for her money. Anthony says he doesn't love her for her money, and he'll prove it by giving her his entire fortune once they're married. And I'm like, wouldn't it still be his if he did that?
Considering how money worked at the time, where basically women couldn't have bank accounts, yeah.
Absolutely.
It would.
Anyway, Snaps asks how much a Goomba like Anthony could have anyway. $48,642.30. Snaps asks how Anthony saved that much money on his old salary. And Anthony's like, I stole it from you. Snaps is not amused. Anthony gives a long explanation about how he cooked the books on Snaps' bootlegging operation to move money into his pocket. Anthony manages to somehow convince Snaps that he did all this just because he loves his daughter. Snaps asks if she loves Anthony too. Anthony says yes, she's given me proof. Specifically, she had sex with me. Snaps is not amused. He says he's going to speak with his daughter. Anthony says he'll take a walk while they're talking. Snaps heads upstairs and is stopped by a maid who asks to speak with him. He says no and continues to his daughter's room. We see Snaps' daughter, Lisa, played by none other than Academy Award winner Marissa Tomei. She's smoking at 9 a.m., but quickly stashes a cigarette away when her father knocks on her door. She lets him in, and he says he knows all about her little boyfriend, or should he say, lover. Lisa is shocked and asks how she found out. Snaps says the guy was just here asking to marry her. Lisa is overjoyed. She says she thought he had left her for good. Snaps says she's going to marry the man he picked out for her, Bruce Underwood III. She says she doesn't want to marry Bruce, and she feels stifled in this house, and she wants to see the world and have adventures, and Snaps is like, do whatever you want, just don't leave this room. Lisa screams and cries as Snaps leaves. As soon as the door closes, she stops screaming and starts scheming. Aldo tells Snaps the Finucci brothers, played by none other than Harry Shearer and some other guy, have arrived. They're a pair of very Italian tailors who are here to make Snaps look like a proper banker. Which, maybe I don't have an eye for 1930s fashion, but his post-bankerification outfit looks the same to me as his pre-bankerification suits.
I would agree, but I would also say that in general, some people have an ability to look at like a fancy suit and a not fancy suit and be like, this one clearly was like maybe $100 and this one was $10,000. And I look at them and I just see two different suits.
Yeah.
And
that look basically the same.
There's also that's not important throwaway gag that they make suits for gangsters when with the identity thing later. So
that was very fun.
It probably is the exact same thing, and it's probably there for subtle laughs. This movie has a lot of subtle laughs, which were not a thing in 1991,
and a lot of not subtle laughs.
Very true.
Yes.
The Finuccis tell Snaps that this is their last house call because now they're famous. They show him a newspaper article about a mob killing, and the guy in the gruesome photo is wearing a Finucci suit. Snaps is like, okay. They start measuring Snaps for the suit in the library for some reason. Nora, the maid from before, is in Lisa's room comforting her. Lisa says marrying her boyfriend was her one chance to get out of this prison, but her father won't have it. Nora says she once saw a play where a girl told her parents she was pregnant, so they had to let her marry her boyfriend. Lisa likes the scheme. Nora runs in and interrupts Snaps' fitting and tells him Lisa needs to speak with him. She says it's a matter of life and death. Snaps goes to Lisa's room and she tells him she's decided to go to a convent to have her baby. Snaps is not amused. He says she's not going to any convent. She's going to marry this boyfriend of hers after Snaps breaks his legs. Snaps returns to his fitting, but is immediately interrupted by Aldo, who says a dame is at the door, saying she has to speak with him on a matter of life and death. Snaps meets the young woman, named Teresa, and takes her to his office. She says she's done a stupid thing. She's fallen in love with a man named Anthony Rosano. Snaps says Anthony is already spoken for, and was already here asking for his daughter's hand. Teresa explains that she had told Anthony that she was Snaps' daughter, so when Anthony asked to marry his daughter, he actually was talking about her. Snaps is thrilled to hear Anthony has never met his actual daughter, and then it's like, wait, what the fuck, then who's the father? Then he asks Teresa why she told this weird lie. She says she wanted Anthony to think she came from a wealthy family, and when they met, she had just seen Snaps' name in the paper. She didn't know at the time he was a gangster. She never told Anthony the truth because he liked the idea that she was Snaps' daughter, and she hadn't realized he worked for him. But now she doesn't want Anthony to find out the truth from anyone else. Snaps ponders this, trying to figure out what to do to get his grandchild a father and get his 50 grand back. He promises to not tell Anthony the truth, as long as Teresa doesn't leave the office. He steps out into the hallway and tells a lackey to watch the office and make sure his daughter doesn't come out. The lackey's like, "But I've been here the whole time. How did she get out of her bedroom?" Snaps is like, "Not Lisa, Teresa," and walks off. The lackey did not realize the boss had 2 daughters. Snaps goes to Aldo and tells him to find Anthony and stash him somewhere, but not his office. As Snaps heads back to the fitting, Nora stops him and asks to speak with him again. He says not now and steps into the library, but is immediately called away by his wife, Sophia, returning home. She's furious about the chauffeur and asks why Snaps had to fire Oscar, who was a better chauffeur. Snaps says to forget Oscar, they've got bigger problems. Sophia bursts into Lisa's room and hugs her, both of them crying. She asks who did this to her. Lisa says Daddy knows already. Snaps says, "Better to hear it from your own daughter's lips." Lisa says, "It's Oscar, that character we were just introduced to in passing." Snaps and Sophia are shocked. Lisa asks why Snaps is so surprised. The doorbell rings and Snaps steps away so he doesn't have to think of a lie. It's Anthony at the door. As Snaps pulls Anthony into the sitting room, Sophia calls down to Snaps from the second floor railing. Anthony is like, "You must be Mrs. Provolone. What an honor." Snaps quickly introduces him as his accountant, and Anthony adds that he's also her future son-in-law. Sophia's like, "What? You're marrying Lisa?" And Snaps says, "Not Lisa, the other one." And she's like, "What other one?" And he's like, "The other one that's not Lisa." Snaps pulls Anthony into the sitting room, leaving Sophia very confused. Snaps tells Anthony that his wife thinks Anthony's just trying to get at the Provolone fortune. Anthony asks how he can prove his good intentions. Snaps says, "Just give Lisa the 50 grand before they're married." And Anthony's like, "You mean Teresa?" And Snaps is like, "Yeah, I'm always getting these kids mixed up." Anthony says he didn't put the money in a bank, but converted it to precious stones. He'll go get them right away. Snaps heads to the kitchen and asks Aldo to find Oscar. But it turns out Oscar joined the army and was shipped abroad.
I usually in a story when it's like, oh, I converted the money into precious stones. It's the money's in diamonds or something like. I just go, okay, yeah, sure, okay, let's symbolism or just having a nice plot MacGuffin that's easier than a wad of cash or something. I get it, but considering this movie literally takes place in the middle of the Great Depression, that's probably a really safe and smart idea.
Yeah. I think Anthony actually says, like, "I didn't put it in a bank, you know what shape they're in."
Yeah, exactly.
So Aldo explains that Oscar was dating some girl, never said who, but broke up with her because her father was such a pain in the ass. Snaps is not amused, and leaves for his fitting. Nora stops Snaps again and insists on speaking to him. She says she's leaving to marry Bruce Underwood. Snaps is not amused, but he can't stop her. She quits. He returns to his fitting, but Sophia enters the library to speak with him. She says they have to find Oscar, but Snaps says he's off the table. Sophia says the baby needs a father, but where will they find a husband for Lisa? They look at the Finuccis, who both insist they're already married. Sophia asks about that boy who was here earlier wanting to marry Lisa. Snaps says he didn't want to marry Lisa, he wanted to marry the other one who's not Lisa. Sophia is not amused and says she doesn't know what he's talking about, but if he loves her, he'll find their daughter a husband. We've been having cutaways to the cops this whole time, and they've been watching the activity at the Provolone estate and have called Toomey in. They see that Anthony's arriving again with a conspicuous black bag. Anthony steps into the library and Snaps sends the Finuccis into the hall. Anthony hands the bag to Snaps, who opens the bag and confirms its contents. Anthony makes to leave to propose to Teresa, but Aldo and Snaps stop him. Snaps tells Anthony that his daughter is pregnant. Anthony's like, "Teresa's pregnant?" And Aldo's like, "Teresa's pregnant? Who's Teresa?" Snaps is like, "She's my daughter." Snaps convinces Anthony to sign a statement declaring his intention to marry his daughter. Anthony does so on the condition that Snaps signs a statement declaring his intention to give his daughter the 50 grand upon her marriage to Anthony. It's a weird plot point. Anyway, Snaps grabs the bag and takes Anthony to his office where Teresa is waiting. He leaves them alone there, confident that he's outmaneuvered Anthony, and there's not an hour left in the movie. In the office, Anthony mentions the pregnancy, and Teresa's like, I'm not pregnant. Also, Snaps isn't my father. Anthony is not amused. He ignores Teresa, trying to figure out how to get back the money Snaps conned him out of, which he stole from Snaps in the first place. Teresa is frustrated by Anthony's materialism and runs out on him. Anthony chases after her, but she leaves the house and gets in a taxi. Snaps has finally finished his fitting with the Finucci's, but as he opens the library door, he sees a furious Anthony marching towards him. Anthony demands to speak with him, and Snaps sends the Finucci's into the hall. Anthony says Snaps must be pretty pleased with himself. Snaps says his father would be proud. He got his money back and no one got shot. Anthony reaches for the bag, but Snaps grabs his arm threateningly. Anthony reminds Snaps that he's going straight. Snaps says yes, but they're not. He points out the Finucci's, who are playing cards obliviously in the hall. Snaps says they're the most vicious contract killers in the country. One word from Snaps, and Anthony's dead.
Which, like, we haven't brought it up a lot, but they are like very, very Italian softies. Like they are
very silly.
They are the least intimidating people in the entire world. So when he said, "Yeah, I got the Finucci's on retainer," it's so good.
It's a good joke. It's such a good joke because, like a couple other jokes in the movie, if you're not expecting, which I was not expecting, that the newspaper clipping to come back like this, I was like, "Oh, that's good."
Which the newspaper clip is a good setup because it's like a funny joke in isolation at the beginning of the movie, and then they use it again for another joke. So Snaps tells Anthony if it's the jewels he wants, he can have them. Just marry his daughter. And Anthony says he's never even met her. Snaps says not according to the weird document you signed in which you didn't specify Teresa's name. Under threat of the Finucci's, Anthony reluctantly and tentatively agrees to marry Lisa. Snaps takes the bag and says he's going to get Anthony's fiancée. It's about time they met. While Anthony waits for Snaps to return, the Finucci's approach him and ask him to tell Mr. Provolone that they're in a hurry. They've got to do another guy at 11. The Finucci's talk about their business with unintentional word choices which make it sound like they're talking about killing dudes, and they even show him the newspaper article we were talking about the mob killing. They say maybe someday they'll do Anthony too, and when they're through with him, no one's going to recognize him. Snaps and Sophia arrive at the library with a disgruntled Lisa in tow. She coldly introduces herself to Anthony. Sophia says they should leave the lovebirds alone. Lisa and Anthony immediately do the opposite of whatever hitting it off is, and Anthony storms into the foyer. The doorbell rings and Aldo answers it. The man at the door is Dr. Thornton Poole, played by none other than Tim Curry. I once heard someone say that you can tell a lot about a person by what they know Tim Curry from, and this is what I know Tim Curry from.
Amazing.
I don't know what that says about me.
I know Tim Curry as the original voice of the animated Joker for the first episode of Batman the Animated Series.
That
says a lot about me.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think my answer is also an animated one, as him being the voice of the villain in Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost.
Okay, so none of us is like Rocky Horror Picture Show or It.
Okay, I saw that in high school for the first time, so that I already knew who Tim Curry was.
Yeah.
Same with Clue. Which, by the way, this movie gives me so much Clue vibes. Which, again, they're both farces. They're both very same genre of comedy, which is why. But, like, if a movie is reminding me of Clue, that's a good sign.
And also, Tim Curry is there.
Tim Curry is there and very funny.
Tim Curry being there is always a good thing for a movie. So Dr. Poole is here to give Snaps his elocution lessons and rid him of his gangster accent. Aldo directs Dr. Poole and Anthony to to sit in the sitting room, and Dr. Poole corrects Aldo's grammar. As they head to the sitting room, Dr. Poole correctly identifies Anthony's accent as being from Middlesex County in New Jersey, which is incredibly impressive considering Anthony has not spoken in Dr. Poole's presence yet.
Right.
It took me a lot of watches to notice that. But eventually
awesome.
I did, and I was like, what the fuck?
That's so good.
As Anthony and Dr. Poole talk, Anthony realizes Dr. Poole is still single and starts hatching a far-fetched scheme. Anthony heads to Lisa and tells her they don't have to marry each other. He's found someone else for her, someone who's handsome and intelligent and worships the ground she walks upon, Dr. Poole. Lisa is amused by this silly idea. And then she's like, he's old enough to be my father. Anthony says more importantly, he's old enough to be her baby's father. Anthony uses his smooth-talking ways to convince Lisa that Dr. Poole is deeply in love with her, but has been unable to say anything. Lisa's romantic heart can't help but be moved. Anthony leaves to fetch Snaps. Meanwhile, the frustrated Finucci's are getting ready to leave the house. Snaps, bag in hand, arrives in the atrium with Anthony and says the guy's been telling him that now she's in love with Dr. Poole. Snaps insists on Lisa marrying Anthony, and Lisa starts screaming and crying, and Snaps is like, fine, whatever, you can marry Poole, just cross the finish line on this one. Anthony and Snaps return to the library, where Anthony asks to have back the weird document he signed. Snaps says no, he's keeping Anthony on the bench in case Poole doesn't work out. Snaps greets Dr. Poole and sends Anthony, who seems strangely serene now, away. Meanwhile, a priest arrives at the house and is admitted by Aldo. In the office, Dr. Poole and Snaps go through their elocution lesson. They're interrupted by Nora, who steps inside, sets down her conspicuous black bag next to Snaps's conspicuous black bag, and asks for her last paycheck. Snaps is not amused, but hands over the money. Nora grabs a bag and leaves. Snaps tells Dr. Poole his daughter wants to get married. Dr. Poole asks who the lucky man is, and Snaps says, "You are." Dr. Poole is like, what? I hardly know the girl. Snaps is like, let me sweeten the pot. There must be some dream you've got. Dr. Poole talks about his dreams of traveling to some healer to get his mother's gallbladder looked at and opening a linguistics school. Snaps says all of Dr. Poole's dreams are right here in this bag. He opens the bag and dumps it on the desk. A bunch of women's undergarments fall out. Neither Snaps nor Dr. Poole is amused. Snaps rushes out the door calling for Nora, but her taxi is already driving away. Amazing that these bags got swapped so easily when you'd think they'd have noticeably different weights.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think.
You would, but that's some heavy underwear.
It was the 1930s. A lot of underwire.
Snaps re-enters the house cursing and tries to walk back the curses when he sees the priest waiting for him in the foyer. Sophia appears and says the priest is here to collect for some fund or other. The priest says, by the way, congratulations on your daughter marrying Bruce Underwood. And Sophia's like, actually she's marrying a nice Italian boy named Anthony. Snaps is like, actually she's marrying Dr. Poole. Sophia yells, Dr. Poole? And Dr. Poole pops over the railing and says hello. Snaps orders him back in his office. Snaps desperately tries to explain everything to Sophia and the priest, but it's not working. And that's every time he tries to explain the plot of this movie. Snaps says it's one of those mysteries in life you have to accept on faith. He marches off and calls Bruce on the phone in the library. He explains that Nora took the wrong bag and asks Bruce to send someone around to bring back the bag. Meanwhile, Nora appears at the door. Aldo lets her in, and she says she came to return this bag and collect her own, which is very honest of her.
Oh, she said she couldn't open it. She went to use her key to open it, and it wouldn't open, so she figured she must have grabbed the wrong bag.
Oh, yeah. But everyone's able to open every bag.
Yeah, no,
it's true. The rest of the time, that plot point doesn't happen, but they at least say something here.
Yeah, they try. They try to make this movie make sense.
They really do.
So Aldo swaps the bags and sends her away. Meanwhile, Dr. Poole and Lisa awkwardly have tea in the atrium. They quickly realize they've both been duped. Neither of them has feelings for the other. Lisa asks if he heard she was pregnant, and he was like, "What? You're pregnant?" And she's like, "No, that was just a lie to get out of this house because I hate my dad." And Dr. Poole says he knows what she's going through. His own mother can be so possessive. They bond over having annoying parents and quickly hit it off. The doorbell rings and Snaps opens the door. It's Anthony. He says he's lost everything, the jewels and Teresa. He says he's grown attached to the jewels and would like to buy them back for $50,000. Snaps is like, "Yeah, I totally have the jewels right here. But how'd you get another 50 grand? And Anthony says, I stole it from you." Snaps is not amused. Anthony explains how he stole the money again and says he'll give it back in exchange for the jewels and the weird document he signed. Snaps, who thinks his bag contains the underwear, but it really contains the jewels, agrees to these terms. Anthony retrieves a conspicuous black bag from his car containing $50,000 in cash. He exchanges bags with Snaps and also takes back the weird document. Anthony steps outside, thinks to check the contents of the bag, and finds it does in fact contain the jewels. Sophia calls Snaps up to his office to talk. Snaps hands the bag with the cash to Connie, one of the lackeys who's been here the whole time, but hasn't really been plot relevant yet, and tells him to stash it in the library and not take his eyes off it. In the office, Sophia tells Snaps that she called a maid service to get someone to replace Nora, and to be nicer to this new maid because it's hard to find someone willing to work for him. Meanwhile, in the library, Connie catches a glimpse through the window of Lisa and Dr. Poole being all lovey-dovey in the atrium. Being apparently a hopeless romantic, Connie leaves his post to watch them. Meanwhile, the Underwoods' chauffeur rings the doorbell and is greeted by Aldo. The chauffeur says he was sent to return Mr. Provolone's bag and retrieves Nora's bag, apparently unaware that Nora had already made the exchange. Aldo's like, "Okay, I think he stashed it in the library." He heads into the library and swaps the bags, and he and Connie never even see each other. Connie returns to his post and watches the new bag. Aldo sends the bag away with the chauffeur.
Yeah, Aldo sends the money bag away with
Yes.
the chauffeur.
There's
And
lots of bags.
Nora's clothes bag is currently the one that Connie is watching.
Yes.
I, at some point, just was like, you know what? I'm going to stop trying to keep track of these bags. I'm just going to let the movie do what it wants with them, and I'm not going to question it.
Snaps steps into the atrium and calls Dr. Poole into the library, startling him and Lisa out of their romantic reverie. In the library, Snaps tells Dr. Poole that his offer to have him marry Lisa still stands. Dr. Poole is like, "The offer of a bag of underwear?" Snaps is like, "No, forget that. The offer is all this money." He opens the bag and underwear falls out. Snaps sits down and starts banging his head on the table. After banging his head on the table a bit, Snaps asks Dr. Poole to step into the atrium while he talks with Connie. Dr. Poole leaves and Snaps asks how the 50 grand in that bag turned into underwear if Connie was watching it. Connie says maybe it was a miracle. Dr. Poole runs up to Lisa and says, "Let's get out of this madhouse." She's like, "Whatever you say, baby." They run off. The doorbell rings and Aldo answers it to find Teresa. Aldo enters the library and gives Snaps the news. Snaps says he's busy looking for a black bag like this one. And Aldo's like, "Don't worry about that. I swapped the bags for you." Snaps is like, "And was Connie here?" And Aldo's like, "No, I didn't see him." Snaps is not amused, but he just sends them away. While Snaps makes another call to Underwood, Aldo and Connie tell Teresa to meet Snaps in the library. Meanwhile, Anthony drives back up outside the house and grabs a bag out of his car. He rings the doorbell, and Aldo greets him as the man who started it all. Snaps finishes up his call with Underwood and asks Teresa what she's doing here. She says she regrets walking out on Anthony, has been looking for him everywhere. And Snaps is like, "Yeah, good luck with that. I got shit to do." He opens the door to the sitting room and sees Anthony there with a bag. He closes the door and tells Teresa he may know where Anthony is, but she has to wait here and not leave. Snaps grabs the bag from Anthony, who puts up no resistance. He says Snaps can have the jewels. He's realized they're worthless to him now that he's lost Teresa. Snaps is like, Teresa's in the library and she's crazy about you. Anthony and Teresa reunite and are in love and they kiss and everything's great. The doorbell rings. It's the new maid, a woman named Roxanne. As she and Snaps talk, Snaps realizes he remembers her from his early days as a gangster. She was his first love. Snaps asks whatever happened to her. She just disappeared on him. She says she didn't think she was in the best atmosphere to raise her baby. Snaps is surprised to hear she has a baby. Roxanne says she's grown now and is marrying a successful accountant. And yes, things start moving a little fast here. Her daughter
Right?
is in fact Teresa. And yes, in a very stupid plot twist, Snaps is in fact Teresa's father.
Listen, it's stupid, but I love it.
So
Yes. This movie abandoned Sense Make a while ago.
yes.
Roxanne apologizes for never telling him. She lost touch after her father sent her to a convent. She cries and Snaps comforts her, and Sophia appears and is like, "What the fuck is going on?" And everyone's like, Sophia leaves. Snaps has Aldo call in Teresa and Anthony, and they tell them the stupid plot twist that just happened. They share a sappy scene, and then Lisa and Dr. Poole run in and announce they're getting married. Everything worked out in the end. Meanwhile, the bankers finally arrive and walk in on Snaps trying to explain the recent plot developments to Sophia. Snaps tells everyone to wait here while he deals with the bankers. Meanwhile, the cops and the informant separately both see the bankers arrive and assume they're the O'Banion mob. Toomey says they're moving in on Snaps now. The informant tells Vendetti, who says they're moving in on Snaps now. Snaps meets with the bankers, but Anthony reviews the contract and finds they're trying to swindle him. Before the bankers can talk their way out of this, the cops bust in. While Toomey names off what members of the O'Banion mob each banker must be, Nora arrives in the foyer and swaps out the bag, which has been sitting there unattended. Toomey has, at this point, reviewed the bankers' papers and realizes they may just be legit. He orders the men to find the bag and says Snaps must have been laundering mob money through their bank. The black bag is retrieved and handed to Toomey. He upends it over the table and a bunch of underwear falls out. Toomey runs out of the house humiliated. Snaps tells the bankers to fuck off. Outside, the press is giving Toomey a tough time for his nonsense. Then Vendetti drives up, then Toomey catches Vendetti, and I'm like, does Vendetti exist entirely to give Toomey, everyone's favorite character, a happy ending? Like, no scene with Vendetti is important at all. Anyway, back inside, Snaps states his intention to go into business for himself and make Anthony his chief financial officer. He tells his lackeys that they're back in business or whatever, and he looks up to the sky and says, "Sorry, Papa, I did the best I could." We cut to the double wedding ceremony of Lisa to Dr. Poole and Teresa to Anthony. But some guy bursts in and yells, "Stop!" The priest is like, "Who are you?" And he says, "I'm Oscar."
1991.
Snaps orders his men to get rid of him, and they pick him up and carry him out in a weird Looney Tunes way.
Oh, he's gonna die.
He's
He's gonna take a long walk off a short pier.
The grooms kiss the brides. The end.
Yay. So, yeah, let's listen to The Barbers of Seville, and then we'll talk about our memorable moments.
Della città l'arbor la 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 presto battega che le già presto la 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 ah che bel vivere che bel piacere per un barbiere di qualità
It's actually a new because I have the Wikipedia up and I've been reading the whole time. It was a new score composed by Elmer Bernstein that was based around the Barber of Seville, and he incorporates it all throughout, but like as motifs in much longer like film pieces.
Interesting.
Neat.
Yeah.
Film scoring is an art that rarely gets the attention it deserves. So much hard work is put into that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember way back in the day, I don't remember what it was, but it was some like behind the scenes thing, and it was about this guy that was scoring films, and I remember the like recording day. They are playing everything, and the scene plays out, and she's like, "But no, I love him." And then like the music swells, and everyone's like, "We got it!" And it's like a whole note. It's like just like a chord, but it was like the perfect chord, and everyone was so excited for it. I'm like, yeah, I could. The way that everyone is reacting to this means I could never at all do this job. I do not understand what is going on, and everyone is so excited that they got the perfect whole note.
Anyway, did y'all like this movie?
I did. This movie. This is one of my favorite styles of movie. The just constant jokes, like the birdhouse is the same vibe, and I love the birdhouse. And at the end, when the credits were rolling and it showed that it was originally a play, this movie is such a play. The suitcase prop is 100% a big, easily readable thing for the audience to notice. Oh, hey, a new person's carrying in the bag. Oh no, they swapped the bags, etc., etc. It's I would love to see not the original, because the original's in French, but if someone did a play version of this movie, like set in the Depression era, not in the 1950s in France, if they made a play of this one, I would go and watch this play.
Apparently the play also is not about a gangster, but about an industrialist, which makes me just be like, I mean, yeah, just making him a capitalist and treating it the same way you would treat a gangster would be very funny. Because really, what is the difference?
True. Mm-hmm. I remember at some point, I saw this like weird interview thing with some comedian, I forget who. And the interview was about the worst films the comedian had ever seen. And it was just full of bad opinions and stuff. But he pointed out Oscar as one of the worst films he ever saw. And he said one thing that was so bad about it was that it was a musical and Sylvester Stallone sang.
What? No, that's a different movie.
Yeah. It turns out, I guess he was conflating this with another movie, which I haven't seen, but he talks about how he's like a gangster and stuff. So he definitely has some notion of Oscar in his brain. And they're like, and in the video, they're like showing clips of Oscar. And I'm like, whoever was looking for the clips must have been like, why can't I find any clips of him singing to put in this to demonstrate when he sings? So yeah, that was a shit interview. Fuck that guy who I don't remember who it is.
I just found a fun fact from his Wikipedia page. Oscar was released on VHS on September 11th, 1991, 10 years to the day prior to the September 11th terrorist attacks.
Also,
wow,
it received a Blu-ray release in 2018, which I didn't realize films like this got Blu-ray releases.
I think making Blu-rays has gotten quote-unquote cheap enough. Like, we're starting to see like bargain bin Blu-rays the way that we see bargain bin DVDs nowadays. And so I think a lot of people are like, oh, hey, no one has the Blu-ray rights to Oscar, and do it, and then somebody will remember it from the VHS days and we'll get a couple bucks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to see a whole bunch of them where you look at its like home media releases and it's like 1991, then as soon as DVD came out in like 2003 and stuff, and then nothing for 15 years, and then started happening in 2018 when Blu-rays are a lot older than that. It's just a thing that's happening at the death of physical media.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to transition away from the topic point, but I think my memorable moment for this movie, the biggest one, is being 3/4 the way through this movie and it only hitting me then that this movie is called Oscar and it is named after a character who does not show up until the end of the movie,
Mhm.
and not even in a waiting for Godot sense of like, oh, the whole movie's about waiting for this person. No, I don't think he gets referenced until like an hour into the movie.
Yeah, he's not even referenced for a while.
Yeah, and it's like this. Why is the movie called Oscar?
That is one of the mysteries I pondered as a child.
Mhm. It's probably trying to do waiting for Godot sort of things because it's French and they're building up who is this Oscar that everyone keeps talking about, and he's nobody,
Well,
and he dies the moment we meet him.
The French are mysterious, and we cannot hope to hope to understand their ways
or
feel
pronounce
like
their words.
even though it was premiered in French, wasn't Waiting for Godot originally? Yeah, it's written by an Irishman.
Oh, I don't know. I wasn't saying that one was French. I was saying this movie was
Okay,
French. I was saying French filmmakers of the 1960s
Okay.
were busy making films start to be good again by doing a lot of weird shit, and so they were probably doing calling it Oscar and talking about him a lot to build him up to then kill him the moment you see him as a funny mystery thing.
There were lots of gags I didn't mention because holy shit, trying to write a summary of a comedy of errors where the joke is how complicated things get is a nightmare. But there's lots of good gags. Probably a lot of my summary sounded just like, and then some dumb shit happened, and then some dumb shit happened. But there's jokes in there.
There are jokes in there, and they're good. They're
so
mostly good ones. Honestly, I think a lot of them are strengthened by, and this feels so weird to say, because I feel like over time, Sylvester Stallone's reputation has not been great, but like as an actor specifically. I mean in other ways too, probably, but I know specifically as an actor, a lot of people aren't. He's not exactly regarded as one of the greats, but I think he did a really good job selling the comedy in this movie. I think a lot of the comedy in this movie works because he is doing a good job at portraying this main character who is this weird combination of like wily trickster and the most put upon man in the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
The running joke of like him trying to be like, yeah, we're clean now, we're not gonna be gangsters anymore, and his underlings constantly pulling out guns and threatening to kill people, and him having to just be like, the bit where he's disarming one of his dudes, and it's just a pile of weapons, including a stick of dynamite with a little like a clock on it. I couldn't believe it.
That was the exact movie that it went from like just a farce to a Saturday morning cartoon for me. I was like, oh, the rest of the movie, like anything can happen and I'm on board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You put that at near the beginning of your movie, and who even cares that the bags would weigh different?
Yeah. So as we mentioned, it has an 11% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but notably, Siskel and Ebert loved the crap out of it. Said the first reel was disastrous and sucked, and I agree. The first beginning of the movie, Stallone takes a little getting used to in his delivery, but very quickly, basically by the time you meet Lisa to the end of the movie, is just 10 out of 10, and so. Specifically, Siskel gave it a 3 out of 4 stars, but then on their TV show, they gave the film 2 thumbs up.
Nice.
So.
That's wonderful.
You love to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The reason that Siskel and Ebert became such a big thing is because they have good opinions. Usually their reviews are actually good.
Mm-hmm. Like, I don't always agree with what Ebert said, but if he said something about if he liked a movie I didn't like, then that would be enough for me to revisit it and try it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this movie was just fantastic.
I consider it to be both a hoot and a holler.
I would second that motion.
I would agree. It's a fun time. Again, I compared it to Clue. It's an enjoyable movie. I really enjoyed this. I would show this to other people. In fact, my girlfriend who I'm living with now, she is Italian, and part of me was like, I really want to show her this movie just to see how she, because she's like, I mean, like a lot of people are Italian, but her family's like, they're Italian.
Also, this movie, like the big one place where everything takes place is beautiful, and the costumes are beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
movie has some good production design.
Yeah, when I was watching it, I was like, man, I would love if they made a new one of this. I don't know who I would cast anything, but the thing that would suck is that it wouldn't get this budget. There's no way you would get Academy Award winner Marissa Tomei and Sylvester Stallone in a big budget farce comedy these days. Like the only way this would have this kind of production value is if it had unknowns in every single role, or it would have big budget, big names in like a couple of bucks straight to Netflix sort of thing. And those are the only ways we get comedies anymore, which sucks.
Yeah.
Every time I watch a VHS era movie, basically at all, I get really sad that mid-budget movies have died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the film industry sucks right now.
It really does. It's the kind of thing that the fact that, you know, 2 of the 3 major guilds being on strike, it's like, yeah, I hope you burn this place to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want it all to change, and I don't know if it's possible for it all to change.
We can, you know, hope it does.
Yeah, because like I really love Dropout TV, but
Me too.
I would not want every Oscar in the world to be replaced with Dropout TV.
No, I wouldn't either.
It is a new, cool, interesting thing to watch, but it is a premium version of like YouTube series. Like Cut is a similar type YouTube show to the things that are on Dropout, and this is like a premium version of that. It is not a replacement for Hollywood at all
for film adaptations of French farce plays.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Directed by the guy who directed fucking The Blues Brothers and Thriller.
Yeah.
What a weird movie this movie is.
It's really
so
is.
weird. Again, the opening claymation or stop motion, whatever it was, sequence of the opera singing is just it's so weird, but in retrospect, it fits the tone of this movie very well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if a lot of film critics in 1991 were just like, that's weird, that very long opening credits sequence, and then they were like, and the beginning of this movie is moving kind of slowly. And then they were just like, yeah, I've formed my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even going to wait until Marissa Tomei and Tim Curry show up.
But according to John Landis, her first movie was Oscar, but that is not actually true. It was her
first movie?
Marissa Tomei's. Yeah, it's her 4th movie, it looks like. But still, basically, hot, fresh, unknown actress Marissa Tomei kicked off her career in Oscar 1991.
Wild. And then the next year she got an Oscar, and it was a weird thing.
Mm-hmm. So crazy.
But yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This movie owns, and everyone should watch it. It is.
They should.
It is legally available on Amazon Video for like $4. But it's also available in other places. If you are so inclined. But I highly recommend everyone watch it.
If you go back in time to when they would have those huge bargain bins and dig through one long enough, you might find a DVD of this.
You're literally describing the hellscape I worked in for 3 years. God, I worked at Trish backstory. I worked at a Kmart for 3 years,
Oh gosh.
which was hell. And because I was in the electronics department, at least to start with, while there was still an electronics department, I would like be kind of in charge of those bins throughout the store. And at one point, there was a movie in the bins that we could not sell because it wasn't like, I don't know how it ended up there, but it wasn't in our system. It wasn't a product we were selling. It was just this random movie that somehow ended up among everything else, and it just kept moving between bins. It just, I don't know how it kept getting back in there. It was just so weird.
Maybe that's where these movies come from.
They come from the bins.
They just are formed in the bins.
In the bins.
So one final weird thing about Oscar, its film poster is Stallone hanging dramatically from like a clock because he's running out of time, but otherwise it makes no sense why would be hanging from a clock. So I was like, oh, it's a reference to Cliffhanger, which is a movie that comes out 2 years in the future. Why the hell is Sylvester Stallone hanging from a clock on the cover of Oscar?
The bankers are gonna be here at noon. Also, I think it's a reference to a silent film that I forget the name of.
Maybe so, but yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's a silent film where someone hangs from a clock. I mean, there were a lot of films. Probably one where someone hangs from a clock.
But yeah, anything else to say before we wrap it up?
I'm glad y'all liked this movie. It would have been embarrassing if y'all didn't.
Yeah, I listen, I get the feeling showing people a movie that has that deep personal, feeling to you and worrying if they're going to like it or not. I understand.
Yeah, I showed one of my favorite movies to this girl I was dating on our first date, and halfway through we paused it to talk, and she asked if we could not turn it back on, and then she messaged me the next day to say that it wasn't working out and that she wanted a break. So definitely the opposite has happened here.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
So
and that's
Sam
the
and I
movie I'm
will
going to be
continue
showing you
dating.
guys this year. Yes.
Wonderful.
But yeah, that'll do it for the week. If you like what you heard, you can head on over to www.rpgbook.club, where you can donate and help us pay for hosting costs, game costs, and various subscription costs. In return, you can join one of 3 tiers. The Gadabout tier is for everyone who pays $1 or more a month. This lets them get access to the Tales of Podcastia and Book Club no Kaseki episodes a month before everyone else, and lets you vote on the polls like the one that ended today. Then we have the Warrior tier, which is for everyone who pays $5 or more a month, and they also get their name shouted out at the end of every episode like this. Shoutouts to Frost Terror, Dragon Slayer 19, Cerebral Wind, Floris, Kaldron, Freddie Rodriguez, Aaron524, Jfro Prime, and Doho. And then finally, the Luminary tiers for everyone who loves us so much they pay us $20 or more a month, and they also get a one-sentence shout-out to make me say whatever they want. So shout-outs to L. Tantif, who wants you to critical-distance.com, an aggregator for games criticism and journalism. Shout out to William Tiller, who wants you to check out rpgamer.com, a game review website by people like us, for people like us. And shout out to Vimk, who says, play The Legend of Legaia. It's that PS1 RPG everyone confuses with Legend of Dragoon. And also shout outs to Carr, who's a dentist, so he's not shouting out a URL, but rather your own mouth. And he says to brush your teeth twice a day, most importantly, the time right before you go to bed. For RPG Book Club, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm Bernard.
And I'm Trish.
Toodaloo, folks.